Hey guys, welcome everybody. My name is Rick Kua. We are at the chapel in Gettsville, New York, Buffalo, and this is the Christian Musician Summit. Excuse me. And today, first of all, welcome to everybody who is here in the room, and also a big welcome to everybody watching on the internet, not just in North America, but also all over the place, around the globe. I know we got some friends watching from far away places. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about when commitment is there, but skill is, but skill is not. It's a common problem, and it's a situation that we all have to navigate and deal with. Many times people are signed up for something, and they are committed. They show up with every bit of zeal and excitement, and they're just not equipped to do the job. And my guess is, some of you may be in churches where you've got people who are in that position. They show up and they're committed, but they're not highly skilled. So maybe you've come today to figure out, how am I going to talk to those folks? Am I hitting a nerve? Am I right? How many of you are the ones without the skill? Come on. Oh, I love it. Then we're going to have real fun, man. And I hope this will be helpful to you guys. There have been times in my own life where I've wanted to sign up for something. I've wanted to do something, and I love it. I am all excited about it, but I just wasn't built for it. So I hope this is informative to you guys. And the main thing is that, whatever God wants, that's what we want. We want to hear from the Lord. We want to love God, and we want to love one another. And that's, man, when you do that, you can navigate all kinds of other waters, no matter how rough or choppy they may be. Let's look at what the dictionary says about skill and commitment. Skill is the ability to use one's knowledge effectively and readily in execution or performance. Dexterity or coordination, especially in the execution of learned physical tasks. A learned power of doing something competently, a developed aptitude or ability. I can play the bass. That I can do. I have been a bass player since I was in my early teens. I love that instrument. Hopefully I've grown and sought continuing education on my instrument. I've been in bands. I play. It's natural. It feels right. And what I'm not is a bookkeeper. I can't do that. I can't keep books well. I have messed up books like crazy stuff. I'm not built for it, guys. I can't do it well. So I could just figure out a way to learn to get better, and that's a good thing, because maybe I would need to do that. But you know what I did? I went and found a bookkeeper who knew how to do books and actually loved those numbers and maneuvering those numbers. And I found somebody to do it, and my life has changed. I can play my bass, do the things I'm called to do, and not have to worry when there's somebody else better than me. The other thing I don't know how to do is be a plumber. When our toilet breaks, some of you guys are probably laughing at me right now. Those simple things, like fixing a toilet, it's stressed me out to the max. It's been a mess. It's been awful because I'm not a plumber. So I call the plumber. But I can talk to people. I can counsel. I can be a friend. I can, talk about situations, But I'm not a plumber. I'm not a bookkeeper. I don't have the skill in that area. So I could spend the rest of my life trying to get good at something, or I could find out what I'm good at and put most of my time there. I actually came home one day, and my wife was fixing the toilet. I was humiliated, totally humiliated, but she got in there and took care of business. That was less out of her being skilled to do that and more out of she was going to fix my wagon because she was going to be the one to fix the toilet and show me something. Commitment. An act of committing to a charge or trust, an agreement or pledge to do something in the future, something pledged. The state or an instance of being obligated or emotionally impelled. This is about your word, and it's about dedication. commitment, being willing to step up and do it. Commitment is the glue, but skill is the sizzle. That's what makes it all happen. When you take commitment and you take skill and you put it together, it's a beautiful thing. Everything works and everybody's in the right place. Let's talk about what a great player or singer is. They are the product of several things, and we're going to dive into that in a minute. You ever heard the expression, you hire attitude and train the rest? That works in a lot of situations, but it doesn't necessarily work in music. Because if you hire somebody with the right attitude and they've never had a guitar in their hand, you're going to be a long time trying to figure out, number one, is this person skilled, and does this person have aptitude towards playing that instrument, or are you just kind of going to be spinning your wheels and you'll get the person to rise to here, whereas somebody else with that aptitude would rise to the level that you need him or her to rise to. So a great player is the product of several things. First of all, genetics. It's what you're born with. Every now and then I'll go to YouTube because somebody points me there to, you got to see this 4-year-old kid play drums, or you've got to see this 10-year-old boy lead worship, or you've got to see somebody very young, very gifted. I remember when I was growing up, Stevie Wonder, we called him Little Stevie Wonder back in those days. He'd play that harmonica and he'd sing. This kid was so talented. And I just heard the other day that he actually played drums for someone. I heard a story when he was just a young kid. I don't know if one of his parents drove him to this gig, and he was like young, 13, 14 years old, and he was going to be the drummer on this job. And this person is thinking, I don't know, man. And he got behind the drum kit and blew everybody away. That's where you've got the genetics in place. He was born with something that was remarkable. The other thing is environment. What have you grown up around? For me, I grew up around music. My father was a guitar player. My mom sang, not professionally, but he'd play guitar, she'd sing. I heard it all the time. My neighborhood was filled with music. We lived in an Italian-American neighborhood in Syracuse, and man, every Sunday our neighbors had the opera blasting, and it was the combination of the smell of sauce on the stove and the Italian opera going, and we're kids, we don't know nothing about it. But you know what? That stuff started to get into us. My uncles would come over and they would have dinner and just kind of get themselves kind of relaxed, and they'd all sit on chairs, and 2 of them played the mandolin, 1 of them played the guitar, and they'd sing Italian songs, and this was the music. And our neighbors must have thought we were nuts because we'd have the screen is up, and the neighbors are hearing all these guys singing these crazy songs, man. It's what we grew up around. Music was part of our life. And maybe for you, it's the same way. Many times, the old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. A lot of times, you could be a musician and your parents don't play a lick of music, but many times, the kids will follow after the parents. I know so many people that the kids wind up in the family business, whatever that may be. Something, maybe they're in medicine, maybe they're in banking, auto repair, real estate, whatever, or music. The parents play, the parents are involved, and those kids are involved as well, because there's something genetically there, but their environment has put that all together for them. So you've got genetics, you've got environment, and then you've got hard work. And this is the amount of time that you practice, or woodshed as we call it, to hone your craft. You got to work at it, guys. I just spent some time with our guitar players from Blues Council, Will McFarland, Tom Lane, and Tony Hooper, and I was sharing with that audience that these guys don't just play on Sunday night and Wednesday night in church and then put their instrument under the bed. These guys have that instrument in their hand all the time. Phil Kagi, close friend of mine. Phil plays all the time. I'll go over to his house to have dinner, relax, our families get together. And Phil's always playing. He'll take me down in his studio and he'll play me new tracks and pick up his instrument. This is what he does. It's hard work. You have to love it and put in the work. 1 Chronicles 21:24 says, Then King David said to Ornan, No, but I will surely buy it for the full price, for I will not take what is yours for the Lord, nor offer burnt offerings with that which costs me nothing. If you want to be great at something, it's got to cost you something. You've got to make a sacrifice. Like Pastor Jerry talked about this morning, when you love someone, there's a sacrifice involved in that. It's a good thing. When you love music and you love your instrument, there's a sacrifice there. You're going to work hard, you're going to woodshed, you're going to hone your craft and put the time in. So when you've got genetics, environment, and hard work going for you, pretty much you're going to succeed. Do you need all three? No. Do you need any of them? Well, kind of, right? Even though, the Lord can do this miraculous thing in an instant for us, but really, this is kind of where it comes from. It comes from that place. And the other thing is we're going to talk also about your teams and knowing people and knowing one another. Communication is pretty critical. You guys need to get to know the musicians on your team and in your team. Now, for some of you who said with a big smile, we're the ones that aren't skilled, I have a feeling you've got a lot more skill than you believe you have, but you're so diligent in wanting to be better at what you do that you're gonna turn over every rock and every stone to get a word from the Lord and to know more and to feel some more excitement about and more passion about music. Has anybody in here today come because you're in that category that I told you about, where you've got someone on your team that you're needing to maybe have a hard talk with and you're trying to figure out how to do that? Anybody? Plenty of hands going up. And there's some other hands that didn't go up because that person's probably sitting right next to you today, which is awesome. And this is a good thing. Guys, listen. We are one body, many members. That's the way it is. We all have been given a portion. We've all been given something on this planet to do. And when we allow the Lord to direct us into those areas that we're gifted and the areas we're supposed to be in, something incredible happens. But for those of you that have to have that hard conversation, get to know your musicians well. Don't just know them casually. Know them to the point where you'll have influence on them when you need it. And if you're going to have a hard conversation with somebody, you're going to need to have influence, or that person won't listen to you. They're going to get angry. It's going to not feel good. It's not going to be right, and it could be a total disaster. John Maxwell has a quote that I refer to a lot. It says, the amount of influence you'll have on someone is directly related to how good they feel about themselves when they're in your company. Get to know your folks, man. Not just on Sunday, not just on Wednesday night, not just at an occasional rehearsal. You got to love them. You got to be family with them. The people at our church, I am so blessed to say that they are truly family to us. Now, we have our immediate family and our extended family, and we have our friends from growing up that are fabulous. But your church community as well, this becomes your church family. And man, I could hang out with these guys all the time because we've invested in one another. And if you've got to have the hard conversation, you need a platform to be able to do that. Pray together. Another thing is, to have this kind of influence, man, have prayer times. Figure it out. Just lift things up. We don't start a rehearsal without first spending a season in prayer, not just a quick one. Now, we've done a quick one when we're under the gun, something comes up. Sometimes we actually pray from the mic with our in-ears in. Mostly our instruments are off and we come together and we have a time of prayer. And we get to know each other that way. There's nothing that will bond you more than praying together. Have special fellowship times. Be genuinely interested. And you can't make this one up. You have to be genuinely interested in other people. God says to love me with all your heart, mind, and strength. We know this from the Word. And to love what? Your neighbor as yourself. Some nuts and bolts of what all this means. And I'm going to get a little deeper into what we're built for in a minute. But some nuts and bolts. Identify your available musicians. Some of you are always, for example, you're on a team where there's not a high level of commitment. Not a high level of skill. But in your congregation, there may be a bunch of skilled people you don't even know about. They're not going to maybe say anything to you, and you haven't said anything to them. Put it in some kind of handout. Write it in the bulletin. We're going to have a musicians fellowship on Monday night. We're going to get together for some, coffee and donuts or whatever, and have a fellowship time. Get to know people. And then identify their skill level. Evaluate their level of skill. This is not so much, it's always kind of like a, quote, an audition, but really it's a getting to know people. Maybe you make a bunch of charts for some of the worship songs you do and get with the musicians, and then the next time you meet, you say, hey, man, if you want to, we're going to play these songs. We're going to just play these 3 songs. Let's show up and have a time of worship. Put little bands together. Everybody plays the music, and all of a sudden, you're seeing and you're hearing and you're identifying the skill level of these players. And this is going to be, and you need to do this. And maybe you even develop some kind of a rotation. Now, a lot of churches that are smaller, and I totally get it. Maybe you've got 3 musicians, and that's all. Maybe you got a church of 30, 40 people, and these 3 musicians, if they don't show up, you're playing CDs, which is okay. A cappella, CDs, whatever. Worship God. It's not about the music. It is. It's wonderful, but it's really about God. And it's about, more than anything, a heart of worship for the Lord. Our church in Syracuse years ago, I remember when our pastor said, we're not going to do the band for a while because we have relied too much on the band and the sound and the energy and all of that. We're just going to worship God and we're just going to sing. And man, we did that for 3 months. He just had the band sit down and we worshiped, and it was fabulous. It was a time of learning once again how to worship God no matter what the music was doing, what the bass player was doing, how it felt, who was in tune, who was out of tune, whatever. It's not about that. It's about loving the Lord, worshiping Him no matter what. Now, as a musician, do I get distracted sometimes by music that's less than wonderful? Well, I do. But do I live in that place? No. Because the minute I'm distracted, the Holy Spirit says, hey, what are you here to do? Are you here to judge the music, or are you here to worship me? And I come right back to where I need to be with the Lord. Build your worship teams. Include some of your lesser skilled players or singers with others. Somebody asked me once, well, how do I raise up and mentor the younger players? How do I do it without hurting the feelings of these more seasoned players that are already on the team? And I said, well, first of all, you got to share your vision with them and let them know this is the vision of the church. This is what we're about. We want to do, 2 Timothy 2. We want to raise people up, find people who we can teach that can then teach others. This is that continuing to raise up younger players and to get them out there. And maybe if it's a guitar player and you've got Joe plays every week, man, he's there. Well, tell Joe what the vision is. And maybe Jimmy over here, who's the younger kid, spends some time with Joe and Joe mentors him. And then maybe Jimmy's ready now to play those 5 songs on a Sunday, and you plug him in, and maybe his volume's a little lower than Joe's, but he's playing right next to his mentor. And then when he gets to the point where he can do it alone, and Joe is on with the vision, he's signed up for it, he's okay with it, then maybe you do a little rotation where now this young Jimmy kid comes and he plays, and Joe sits out there and has a moment to worship God instead of doing it from the bandstand. You know, these are good things. You got to. It's not about. There's so many churches that have the same four people doing worship week after week after week, and you've got other skilled players sitting out there that you don't even know. Now, if that's not the case, then you do what you can do. You know, because I always will have people come up to me afterwards and say, "Listen, we got an organ player, and that's it. And some lady in the fifth pew back plays a tambourine." And I would say, "Sorry, but seriously." You do what you can do. I'm joking, but you know what I'm saying, man. Come on, let's worship God, whatever it is. If that woman's all you got, then praise God. She is there to play and help to lead everybody into worship. There's a mile of discernment between playing skillfully and with excellence, as we read in the Psalms, and not being a respecter of persons. You know, we want to be excellent, right? We want to give God our very best. We know this. But you can quickly be a respecter of persons because you look for the absolute best and you don't take somebody that's on the rise and build him or her up. You push them out of the way, and you're respecting the ones that you just think are all it. You know, that's not God either. You've got to be discerning. This next one is huge to me. It's the fact that many times committed people, and this is key, committed people are signed up for the wrong thing. They are so ready, man. They're committed. They want to be on the worship team, but yet they're gifted as a greeter. That front person, that countenance that just says welcome. This might be their whole thing, and they're not skilled here or here or here. You see what I'm saying? Many times they're signed up for the wrong thing. And what our responsibility, guys, to do is to help them identify what they're made of and what they're made for. Proverbs 18:16 says, "A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men." Now, what that tells me is, number one, if it's in you, it's going to come out. You're going to play. You have to play. And the second part of that is, and brings him before great men. That means they're pretty good at what they do. If their gift brings them before great men, they are excellent at what they do. They are gifted at it, and they are, as we would say, remarkable. Here's 5 things that'll help you discover what you're made for. This is from a friend of mine, James Ryle. James is a pastor and a speaker and a dear friend from down in Nashville. And he came up with this, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I've been teaching people this for years now. 5 things if you're taking notes. The first thing is desire. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? I can remember back in my early musician days, I was playing 6 nights a week at a club. I just wound up with that gig. I had a great piano player friend, Larry Arlotta, take me under his wing. I didn't really know much about jazz, but he liked me and thought I could play, and he taught me how to play and told me what to listen to. This guy mentored me, man. He would give me these records from Oscar Peterson with Ray Brown playing the bass and all these other great players. And he would listen with me and point things out and say, now go home and woodshed. Go home and work on this. But he immediately put me in the band. So I've got this gig. I'm playing 6 nights a week. And then one week I noticed an ad in the paper that the Chicago Transit Authority was coming to Syracuse. This is probably 1971. They're called Chicago now, but in those days they were CTA, Chicago Transit Authority, whatever, big horn band, very popular in that day. And we went to the Lowe's Theater, which is an ornate theater in Syracuse, just beautiful, 2,200 seats-ish. And it was a Monday night. We bought tickets. I brought the whole band with me. Now, at this point, I'm a newly married guy with a young daughter. I'm making some money playing 6 nights a week, but I'm still trying to figure out, what am I going to be when I grow up? I'm just doing this because I could, and I'm making money at it. It'd be the same as somebody going and working at the grocery store, or the gas station, or whatever. You're making some money, you know how to do it. It was fine. It was great. And I went to the Lowe's. Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry. But I went to this theater, got there. The place was packed with people. There was a vibe in the air, an energy in the air. You know, the lights are dim. The LED lights from the amplifiers are kind of glowing. There's a little music playing in the background. It was pretty magical, if I can use that word, you know, for guys our age that were just still in discovery mode. And I went there, and that band came out on the stage, and man, it was one hit after another. The crowd went nuts. 1 minute I'm just jumping up and down, clapping, moving. The next minute I'm tearing up, and not because it was a sad song, because I was emotionally overcome and overwhelmed by the level of talent and how they took music and communicated. Room empties out, and I just knew. I said, man, that's exactly what I want to do with my life. I knew it. I knew it then, and it was my desire. I desired it. I had a strong desire. I was going to figure out how to do it. Oh, thank you very much. Excuse me, getting over a little something. Hello on the internet out there. Hang on. Oh, thank you very much. I had the desire, guys. That's number one. How do you know what you're made for? You got to have the desire, number one. Number two, you got to have the ability. Well, I could play already. I knew how to play. You know, this guy in the restaurant hired us, and we wound up being at this gig for almost 3 years. So I knew the ability was there because he kept bringing us back week after week. Again, I didn't have the ability to fix the toilet or do the books, but I could do this. And I could learn music. And I could be part of an ensemble of people that played music and made people happy, made them come together and dance and sing along and have a nice evening. I could do that. I could be part of that whole scene. Number three, opportunity. What doors are opening for you? I run into people all the time who, man, they want to be musicians so badly, but they just don't play well. And there's no opportunity there. So they might have the desire, but there's not the ability, and there's not an opportunity. Nobody hires them. If they get an opportunity to go play, they play there once, you know. There's not the opportunity. In my case, we stayed at this gig for years. People wanted us to play this wedding, this party, this thing over here. We had opportunity all over. Doors were flying open because we were good at what we did, thankfully, you know. The next thing is effectiveness. Number 4. Do people receive what you're doing and encourage you to do it more? This is a big deal. When we play, they received it, and there was a lot of encouragement there. Hey, man, you're here every Tuesday through Saturday, right? Well, listen, I'm going to be back next week, and I'm bringing my friends. Or, man, when you played that song and did that little bass solo, could you do that again next time I come? There was encouragement, you know. There was encouragement to do it more. We were effective. We were effective at what we did. And the other thing is durability. Are you so energized by what you do that you can just do it forever? Now, let me tell you right now, we're all pretty toasty here at the Christian Musician Summit because it's a busy time. It's early in the morning to late at night, and it's teaching and playing and talking and doing, all related to music. But you know what? We'll collapse at the end of the night and wake up the next day, and we are ready, man. We're ready to go again because we're durable for this. We love it. So Those 5 things. Do you have the desire? Do you have the ability? Is there opportunity, doors opening for you? Are you effective when you do what you do? And are you durable to be able to do it over and over again? I love in the movie Chariots of Fire when I think is it Eric Little, the Olympian, who says, I feel God's pleasure when I run. Well, for you musicians out there, do you feel God's pleasure when you play your instrument? I believe you do. I believe you do. And this is an important thing. You got to know what you're made for. Now, let me say this. If you're listening to me talking here and you're kind of realizing, man, I don't fit a lot of that criteria, but I still want it, then you know what? Then work at it. Work to get better. Learn. Come to conferences like this. Work at it. But don't torture yourself throughout your life if it just never seems to happen. Because there's something else that you're really built for, that God's just waiting for you to just step up and find out what it is and go do it. And it might be boring or mundane or whatever, but maybe you haven't landed in the right place with it. You have to be able to shift your passion. I told somebody years ago, I love music. Totally love it. But if somebody said, you know what? Tell you what, we're gonna get together and we're gonna start a company. We're gonna sell widgets, whatever that widget might be. We're gonna sell something. People need it. This is a great thing. It's revolutionary. You know what? I could take my passion, and doesn't mean I'm abandoning being a musician. The gifts are irrevocable. I'm still a musician. Doesn't matter if I do it for a living or not. I could take my passion and move it over here and put all that God-given stuff that God has given me and energize myself to be able to do this if I thought there was a reason. If it was a reason just to provide for my family, and I say just to provide, but that's not the right word. To provide for my family, guess what? I would do that thing with everything everything that's in me. I would do it with excellence because I know the revenue from that, the provision would be a blessing for my wife, my kids, my grandkids to come. And I just go do it. Does that mean I'm abandoning my music, putting my instrument down? No, not at all. It just means I'm willing to shift my passion. So for you guys, sometimes, and again, what I don't want to see is people be stuck where you have wrestled with this and fought with this year after year after year, and now you're in a rut, and the enemy is saying, no, man, they just haven't heard you yet. They don't know what you do, man. You just hang in there. You keep going. When really you should be shifting your passion and finding some other way to serve. I also know people that love music. They're crazy about music, but they don't play. But they want to be involved, and they serve the team in an administrative role. They're the librarian for the charts. They print the charts out, make sure everybody has what they need, and they look after things in that administrative gift. And it's beautiful when that happens. The great thing about music, guys, is you're not disqualified if you're not a professional musician. You are a music lover. Music is in you. Whether you play it or not, whether you play it full-time or not, it doesn't matter. The music is in you. It's part of who you are. So if you really want to do more and get better, then do all those things. Do just what you're doing now. You've come to this event. You're working at it. You're going to seminars. You're worshiping. You're crying out to the Lord. You want to get better at your instrument. And you just go for it and do it. But realize that if some of these things hit you and you say, wow, I guess I've got desire and that might be about it, then really ask God what he's got for you. And for you guys that have to have hard conversations with people. I'm not saying you go in and you start firing people. It's not about that. Help people to feel great about what they do. When I talk to you guys, part of how I'm built, when I talk to you guys, and if I feel that I've imparted something from God to you, and I sense that it's made a connection, I am energized, I am durable, I am all that. I feel filled up and good about it. I don't have an instrument in my hand right now, but it doesn't matter because I'm filled up and I feel good about life. When I play my instrument, I feel great. When I'm with my grandson and my granddaughter, and I'm seeing their little smiling faces, and Poppy's playing games with them and chasing them around, I'm not even thinking of my instrument. I'm not thinking of anything other than the joy I'm getting out of being available and with them. So there's plenty in life, plenty areas that you can get filled up. What the enemy will want to do is take that one thing that you're not made for and get you stuck in that zone. So this is all you want. This is all that's on your mind. And man, you're not going to be happy, and nobody else around you is going to be happy until this thing brews into something. Is this too hard? It's not too tough, right? Does it make sense? Okay. 1 Peter 4:10 says, each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others faithfully, administering God's grace in its various forms. Use whatever gift he has received to serve others faithfully, administering God's grace in its various forms. 1 Peter 4:10. So just a little summary on some of the stuff we covered. Know your team. Know who they are. Get to know your musicians. Let them know that they're loved. Let them feel it. Don't trump it up. Don't contrive it. Don't do it because of what you can gain out of it. You need to genuinely love others. Be an effective communicator. Learn how to get your points across to people in love. Not coming from a condescending place. Coming from a place eye level to eye level. Peer to peer. Communicate well. Make sure they're in the right place. Use those 5 points. Maybe there's a time where you're going to have a conversation with somebody because of the fact that you have influence in their lives because of the way they feel about themselves and the way you've loved them. And you're going to have that conversation and say, hey, let me tell you something that this guy, Rick Kua's friend, James Ryle, told us. Praise publicly, criticize privately. It's amazing to me that I run into people all the time who have no problem throwing their friend, husband, wife under the bus in public and think nothing of it. And some of these people have no problem getting angry in front of an audience of people. I don't know if you ever know those kind of folks. They're fearless, man, but fearless in the worst way because there's no tact, there's no respect, there's no discernment. They don't care because what they've got to get out of them, to them, is more important than doing it the right way, than criticizing privately and praising publicly. Mentor people. There's people in your lives right now. Some of these people that maybe you're thinking about that aren't quite skilled enough, they haven't been really mentored yet. Maybe they've got that ability. Maybe there is something there, but you haven't yet figured out how to really invest time into these folks. You've got to ask the Lord, how do I do that? Learn how to be a good mentor. Like I said, genuinely love them. Have influence. Set aside time for these people. Make an investment into their lives. Because the sad thing would be that somebody that you think is not skilled winds up getting pushed aside And there's a gift inside of them that was never developed because we were either too worried about our position or we just didn't take the time to love them enough to want to raise them up, you know. I love playing my instrument. I love it. I love when church calls and, you know, I'm in a rotation and when I get a call to come and play. But I told the last couple situations I've been in over the last probably 20 years, if there's a younger guy that can do it, you call him, you call her. I'll play anytime you need me, anytime you want, but I don't want to take a gig away from somebody that hasn't done what I've done, because I know how filled up I am for getting to play for all these years. And I want that younger kid to sit in that position that I might have been in. No, you play, man, and I'll be out there cheering him on or her. That's what we got to do, guys. We got to be, you've heard the expression, work yourself out of a job, you know. We got to do that, man. We got to just raise up these younger ones, mentor them, give them time to become who God wants them to become. And once they have grown to that point, then you got to empower them. You got to let them get out there and do it. You know, if they make a mistake or they're not quite tuned up right one day or something happens, no big deal. Just empower them and let them get in there when the time comes. Teach them about excellence. Give them every bit of help they need to grow. But just get out there and mentor, empower, and grow somebody up in your presence. And like we said a few minutes ago, if you have to have the hard conversation, well, you have to have the hard conversation. That's just part of the reality. Know how to do it. Do it in love. Don't be a leader that's going to leave a trail of blood behind you. Amen? All right, so now the fun part. Let's take some time and let's talk a little bit. Tell me a situation. Tell me what's going on. Number one, if there's anything I said that's confusing, needs more explanation, let me know. And besides that, if there's something going on in your church, something that you're concerned about, or you have a question, come on, let's talk about it. Let's have a little conversation. Anybody? And do we have an extra mic coming? Oh, I got a mic. No, I can do. We'll use my mic. We're doing this for our wonderful friends on the internet. So, if you want to remain anonymous, we'll keep the camera off you, but you can kind of talk like this. Any questions? Yes. Come on closer. I'll come over to you. I want to make sure the folks out there can hear these questions. Thank you.
With coming into a new situation, coming into a new church, you kind of tend to inherit people. You don't necessarily get to handpick your group and pick out the most talented people. And coming in as a new person, there's always, kind of that skepticism of, oh, this new guy, who, people are already trying to think certain things. And how do you handle situations like that with people who have been involved at a church where they aren't really going in the same direction that the worship is going, but also, with keeping them there, but also, moving forward the direction?
What you don't do is kick them out one at a time or all at once. As a matter of fact, you don't kick them out at all. What you do is cast your vision with these people. Get to know them. Let them come down to a point where you just, you're not way up here as this lofty leader. You're right eye level to them. You're a peer. You say, you know what, man, I know it's got to be as awkward for you as it is for me. I've come here. You guys have been doing this for years, and here I am with expectations on me to be a leader and do things and think of some new things for the church. So, man, I really need your help, guys. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your thoughts are, but ultimately I need your support because God has put me in this position. I believe it. The pastor believes it, and I believe it, and I want to steward that well. I don't want to do it at anybody's expense. But I need you to have my back, and I need you to be with me. And then little by little, you start identifying who you have, and you work with them. And when it comes time to grow your team, like I said earlier, you cast that vision to them and say, listen, here's what I feel God's telling me. And whatever that is, I'm not presuming to know, but whatever God's telling you, you cast that vision to these guys and let them know, and they'll come behind you and they'll get behind you with it. And then one by one, you can start, bringing some new people into the rotation and make it look a little bit more like you may want it to look, but without throwing people away, because they're valuable. They're people of value. They've been there before you even showed up, serving and giving. But if they have a problem with the idea of mentoring and bringing others in, then they're going to have to work that out themselves. And guys, every now and then there's fallout. There just will be fallout. There will be people who just can't do it, and they leave. My friend tells me a story of an organ player that was at the church he was at for 20 years. And this guy did it a certain way, and that was it. You can sit down. But does that help, bro?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just go love him, man. There was an organ player who did it a certain way at this church year after year after year. And all of a sudden, they brought in my young friend to be the band leader. And he put a band together. And, there's a bass player in the band. And this organ player would play bass with his left hand before the bass player showed up. So now the bass player's there, and it's a mess. It's, if you've got two people down in that, or even if it's a keyboard, and somebody's playing the left hand of that big Yamaha keyboard, totally clashing with the bass. And man, I've been in situations where the left hand of the keyboard player is hitting bad notes, and it's right in my tonal place, and I'm thinking it's me, and now I'm hitting bad notes because I'm thinking, well, that doesn't work even though it's the right note. So it's hard. And my buddy finally told this guy, listen, this is after a lot of love, because this guy's so tender, my friend. He said, I want you to do me a favor. Just do this for this rehearsal, okay? I want you to sit on your left hand, and I want you to play chords with just your right hand. Oh, man, that was like a royal battle. The guy finally did it, and all of a sudden, not in a minute, but it took a while, but things started to work, and he got it. And he adjusted his playing to fit with the fact that there's somebody in this zone down here. There's a bass player there, and that worked. But if I got the story right, this guy actually left for a while because he couldn't do it, but then kind of came back in humility, and everything worked itself out, So you're going to have all kinds of situations. People will comply right off the bat. Some will leave for a season. God will speak to them, and they come back. And there will be some that don't come back at all. I'm telling you. It amazes me how many people are in churches with wrong motives. They are in these churches, and it's all about them. It's all about doing it the way they want. And you find out that their issues aren't just with the band leader. They've got issues. They got authority issues. There's control issues. They have problem with authority figures. They are wounded. They are wounded, hurt, and insecure. And you're going to be the recipient of that unless you know how to deal with it in a loving way. This is just, you guys know what I'm talking about, And sometimes I'll say, you're going to run into people that have control problems, and I'll say, well, how many of you guys have control problems? I'll be the first to put my hand up, man. I want to do things the way I want to do it. I'm not a control freak, but I'll be honest with you. I quickly find out how I have a routine, and I like that routine to go just the way it goes because I understand what it is. I feel safe within it. But when that gets pushed off on somebody else and you don't let somebody grow and come into their own because you want to control everything, that's where there's a problem. More questions. Come on, guys. Yeah. All right, great. Thank you.
All right. Situation.
Yeah.
Situation would be this. If you have somebody on your group, myself, master's in music education. Mm-hmm. I come with the knowledge of reading, the knowledge of doing, and the knowledge of theory. And I'm working with working with people who don't have any of that. So in some ways, I have to dumb down all of my information to a 1-4-5, or even to just the chord charts, the three chords of this gig, and we're going to play everything in E because that's how it's going to go. And that's created some conflict amongst communication. So my question, I guess, would be, have you come across some of that in your life, and how have you worked through it? I realize there's music that can be made without any knowledge of reading music, and some of the best music is made that way. But at the same time, if you're going to do it right, and that's where I get in trouble, and this might be me. Sure. Where I get in trouble is I want to do it right for God. Yeah. And if you wrote that song and it's here and I'm looking at it, I want to play it like you wrote it for that purpose. And sometimes we skip things.
Yeah. That is a great question, because in your case, you have the ability. God has taught you how to learn about theory and music and all kinds of stuff. So you're wanting to use what God has given you, not just because you paid money to go to school to learn it, but because it works and it will enhance and raise up the quality of what you're doing at church. And you use the term to kind of dumb down. I get it. Listen, I get it. We all understand what that means. It's not a condescending. It's not saying anything against anybody else, but there is a higher level of education musically, and you're dropping that down a notch to help your folks be able to still be involved, or you'd have to just clean house and get all new people. I would say you're going to have to keep doing that a little bit, just like you're already doing. But at the same time, try and find ways to, little by little, let people know the importance of doing this in keys other than D or E or whatever it is. In other words, Tony Hooper said in an earlier session, it was great. He said that he was doing a record on a young girl who only played a G to an E minor in beautiful voice, and she's playing this. And Tony suggested at one point that, well, why don't you go to this right here? Go to an A minor. She goes, no, I can't do that. And he says, well, why not? And she said, well, I don't know that chord. I only play two of them, and I want to keep it simple. And Tony just challenged her and said, well, what happens if you learn a new chord? And he was making a joke saying, if you've been doing two chords and you learn a third, revival might break out in the church. So don't limit yourself, You're going to have to just take it one step at a time. Your education is up here. Let me do it this way. Your education is over here. Your team is over here. So you're going to have to they can't come your way all at once. They're not educated for it. So you're going to have to find a way to come over to their side and little by little bring them more towards you, however that looks. And that might include getting some musicians that are going to be added to the equation that have understanding of that. We don't throw those guys out. We just figure ways to use them, because otherwise you're the new guy that's got this college education, and he came in, and we've been leading worship for years, and people are entering, they love it, and now this guy comes in, man, and he wants to blow it all up and start fresh. You don't want that. Even if starting fresh is a good thing, the better thing is to, again, not leave a trail of hurt people behind you. You've got to just say, thank you, Lord, that I know what I know. Don't let any pride get in you at all. Come to your team and little by little say, how can I get these guys to learn and grow and come along? Do they read at all? Seconds or minutes? Do they read music at all? No. They don't really read music at all. If you tell them to play a G chord, do they know what a G chord is? Could they read a chord chart? Okay. Most of our modern churches use that chord chart system anyway. So you can say, okay, we're going to start here, and we're going to figure it out. It's a tough thing. Don't let your education be something that the enemy can use to make you feel superior. You know what I'm saying? Even though you've got a further level of education, it's excellent for the Lord. It's godly. It's wow, man. And thank God you did that. It's beautiful. But here's what you're dealing with. This team over here, that God cares about them and their hearts as well. So you got to get real clever outside of your musical abilities. You got to get clever now and say, okay, Lord, how am I going to bring these guys up a bit or bring them over my way a bit? Does that make sense? Okay. Yes.
The word of encouragement that I'm hearing.
Come on. Come over.
The word of encouragement that I'm hearing for you is, and Rick, that was awesome. You're over here, and they're over here, and they can't come to you. You've got to go to them. And isn't that exactly what Jesus has to do with us? And so it's not you having to pull or drag them. It's you loving them and drawing them the same way that he has to do with us. And maybe that will help some of the hurt and some of the difficulty that you get when you have a skill and a gift that others don't. And I know how frustrating that can be. But to think of it in that way might help you have an easier time with that side of it so that you can love and serve them with everything that God has given you. And how wonderful would that be to see where you end up in 6 months or a year with that?
Thank you, Pastor. That was excellent. Thank you for that word. And that's absolutely right. You got to, that's your heart, man. I know right now. I know who you are in just a couple of short words. So thank you. Other questions, guys? We got about, what, a couple of minutes. We're still on. 3, come on. People paid good money for this out there in cyberspace. Yes?
I don't need to come up with a quick question. When do you pull the trigger?
When do you pull the trigger?
At what point do you say, I've done all I can do, and this is the point?
When do you pull the trigger? I've done all I can do. This person is really holding us back. It's hard. They sing out of tune. Nobody else wants to join the choir or whatever.
I don't have that situation now. I want to hear what
You good, and I don't have that answer because that answer really is the only person that can answer that is you with the Lord's guidance. You know, I mean, for me, it's all about attitude. If pulling the trigger is pulling the trigger on somebody that has issues that they don't want to grow in and they are disruptive, and if they hold back the vision of the team, the vision you have for your team. There's a high purpose right here, you know. We don't want to hurt people, just like you said. We don't want to do it. But listen, this is the vision, this is the goal, and it's important, and it's something to guard. And if that person is holding it back because of not just ability, but if the ability is weak, but the attitude is bad, and they've got they're not lining up right with the Word of God, then at that point you owe it to the other people and to the Lord for, you owe it to them to maybe pray about, God, how am I going to deal with this? You know what I'm saying? It's more, in that case, it's even more about heart than it is skill, you know? So we got less than a minute. I will say to you guys this. You guys all came to this for a reason. You people who are listening, you know, you've come and tuned into this one because this is an important one. Ultimately, God has given you the vision for your churches. You know what the Word says? You're all leaders. I hope some of these things, you know, like we say, you know, eat the meat, spit out the bones. What applies to you, let it apply. You just pray and ask God to help you. Love y'all. CMS in Gettsville, New York, Buffalo. God bless you. Bye-bye.